Wiki, hello, good morning, and many thanks indeed for joining us here on the Morning Prime on the 20th of June 2024. And of course, we have Sokoni coming your way, where we take a critical analysis of the state of the nation and how it's faring. Finance bill, I should say, being smack dab in the middle as far as the ongoings in Parliament yesterday was concerned with the debate on the bill. We continue to tease out this and what is its implication is for us and the state of economy in the country right now moving forward. Some of the contentions that have been put forward as well, we shall be looking at them and what it does portend. We know also edible oil that we had the 35% being slapped on it as excess duty. That also has been revised, and we shall look at that keenly, of course, in the program today. But let's see how the weather will be today. All right, this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Standard today. UDA death, Ruto crafts giant party, 2027 politics. United Democratic Alliance, the party that propelled President William Ruto to power, is on its deathbed. The announcement was made at State House, where it was agreed to fold it up and start new outfit. You have a story on page 8 of the publication today, and this is what the president said when he, that is Mudavadi, made the decision to work with us. It was a good decision because we formed government, we will have a stronger party, and we will have a stronger Kenya going into the future. And 159 MPs who were voted in under the Kenya Kwanza umbrella in their last election. They managed to form the majority side with Kimani Ichung'wah as majority leader in the National Assembly. This story is well fleshed out for you on page 8 of the Standard today. On the sidebar, how tax debate buffed new youth revolt. New sheriffs in town. You can see them here, the Gen Z. They are young, spontaneous and very bold. The new generation of protesters is not armed with stones, but phones and other recording devices. They coordinate themselves on social media and take on authorities or their supporters with ruthless precision. You have a story on page 6 and 7 of the publication today. System in Majambazi, one of the placards that was being hoisted yesterday and the day before. And MPs haggle over levies as IMF threats looms. You have a story on page 4 of the Standard today. Somebody is off the hook, and this is Okoth Obado walks free for a song. And this is on page 12 of the Standard today. We know that they're settling out of the EACC out of court, and this is regarding the 2 billion shillings that he cannot really account for. But now, so we understand there are no documents actually to showcase how things were done. You can read the rest of the details there inside the Standard today. You have the Real Estate Pull-Out magazine. Get all the wiser as far as the real estate is concerned. Off the hook, that is Okoth Obado deal. Former Migori Governor Okoth Obado has recorded a consent at the High Court, giving the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission the go-ahead to take over multi-million shillings assets acquired using stolen public funds. In return, the Anti-Graft Agency has dropped 2 billion shillings corruption cases against Mr. Obado and his children. You have a story on page 2. And also, unexplained wealth is all tabulated here. This is what the EACC now is yielding to. 40 million shillings. Of course, that is a parcel of land there in Loresho Ridge, house number C1. We have 57.6 million shillings, Suna East, Wasweta. Developed with 2 5-story residential blocks with a total of 22 bedroom units. Also, you have 9 million, Nairobi Block 828759. That is an apartment number 02 in Greenspan. You have 9 million shillings, Nairobi Block 82/8759 apartment in U1 Greenspan as well. There was 02 Greenspan and U1 Greenspan. You have 10 million, Kamagambo, Kabuoro, 267 residential property, and 7.5 million, Suna East, Wasweta, that is 1/21310, developed with 2 single-story residential blocks with 8 one-bedroom units, 14.5 million Nairobi blocks, that is 82/8759, Marcinate, number 279 Greenspan. This is some of the properties that he cannot really account for, right? Immediately, that is what we are being told. 235.6 million shillings. Mr. Obado to surrender 8 properties and 2 motor vehicles valued at 235.600 million shillings. EACC initially targeted more than 2 billion shillings allegedly siphoned from the Migori County government. And you can follow the story inside the publication today. So he's off the hook for a song. That is what the Splash is reading today. Justice EACC sought out of court settlement after a fire razed county stores and key evidence. You can see Professor Geturo Naina is smiling. He's really straining on the leash to say something on this particular developments here so far, right? We shall come to it. Let's just go through the papers briefly. We have the Star, Ruto headache as anti-tax protests spread nationwide. That is what we have inside the Star this morning. Under pressure, MPs currently debating the controversial finance bill. Analysts warn the demos could spiral into a full-blown uprising. And you have a story on page 4 and 5 of today's publication. And you can see the Gen Z, right? One is up the duff, as you can see here, but she's also strong going out of a taxation finance bill, and especially on the sanitary pads that she was also agitating for. Some of the listings are here, what they want to be addressed. Tax on bread, tax on cancer treatment, tax on cooking oil, tax on diapers, digital tax, tax on M-Pesa, motor vehicle tax, tax on solar, tax on pads. reject Finance Bill 2024. That was the rallying call. And you can see also an insert here. Towns where anti-financial bill demos are scheduled today. That is on Thursday, I should say. Eldoret, Kisumu, Laikipia, Nakuru, Nyeri, Meru, Kilifi. It is spreading. That is what is on the front page of the Star today. Caught up in crossfire of tax protest. That is a journalist here, Dennis Gatuma. And we have Gen Z. How we planned anti-tax demonstrations. They reveal here it was Twitter power. You have the story on page 2. DP Gachagua, lead agent, as UDA is set to swallow ANC. It's already been swallowed as it stands. The stage has been set for merger of ANC with the ruling party UDA. ANC officials and former party leader Musalia Mudavadi yesterday endorsed the move at a meeting with President William Ruto at State House, Nairobi. And that story is on page 7. Bonyesa Sako will tell us if he's in the belly of UDA right now and how it is in the belly, like Jonah, in the belly of the well. That is the Star this morning. We have People Daily. Mudavadi's gamble. Power politics in yet another dramatic move in his political career after the earthquake. Prime Cabinet Secretary to resolve his ANC party and merge with Ruto's UDA. You have a story on page 5 of the publication today. You can see the unflappable smile of both of them, President William Ruto and also Musalia Mudavadi, during the delegation there of the PG, or that meeting that was there of Kenya Kwanza. You can follow the story on page 5. You can now go get good conduct certificate in one day. That is what DCI is saying. You can follow the story on page 7 of the publication. MPs differ as protests escalate over taxes. And this story is on page 4 of the People Daily today. Waliochokoza nyuki. That is a splash on the front page of Taifa Leo. Huku wakitumia mitandao ya kijamii, chipukizi wasiojuana wapanga maandamano ya amani bila wanasiasa. And that is a story that you can see some of the pictures relating to that, how they did it. You can follow the story inside the publication this morning. Also, Business Daily. MPs clip KRA Treasury powers to waive taxes. Taxmen will now be required to seek Parliament's approval. Finance Committee signs abuse of abandoned tax rules. You have a story on page 2 of the publication today. Just to read a snippet of it or an excerpt. It says the Kenya Revenue Authority will be required to publish waivers of taxes deemed uncollectible and seek parliamentary approval if changes introduced by the National Assembly Finance and Planning Committee in the Finance Bill are adopted. Members of Parliament on the committee have rejected a proposal to hand powers to abandon taxes to KRA Commissioners General or Commissioner General in a move which has stopped the creation of an all-powerful tax czar. And on housing, State plan to relax rules on affordable houses sell blocked. State plans to relax rules on affordable houses that is blocked. This is all about housing, and you can follow the story on page 2 of the Business Daily. Where private sector jobs were gained or lost in 2023 is all tucked away on page 9 of the Business Daily. Export permit delays hurt Kenya-Uganda milk trade. That is another story on page 5. Centums, Two Rivers bags 6.1 billion shillings for expansion. And MP's back plan to tax infrastructure green bonds. All that is inside the Business Daily. Let's cross borders to Uganda, where MPs are held for harvesting where they did not sow. The lawmakers and lawyers are subject to police investigation for allegedly eating forbidden fruits off the sweat of farmers whose fields were planted during wars that plagued the country of the past decades. You have a story continuing on page 4 of the Daily Monitor this morning. And the Citizen, MPs, consumers up in arms over proposed CNG charge. Debating the 2024-2025 budget in Parliament yesterday, some lawmakers saying the decision to levy 382 shillings on every kilogram of compressed natural gas flies in the face of the government's much publicized strategies to tackle rising fuel prices and the shortage of dollars. That story continues on page 2 of the publication today. Biological father, clergyman among 9 seized over albino's girl's brutal killing. There is another story inside on page 5 of the Citizen. These macabre killings are still continuing in Tanzania. And you can read the rest of the details there inside the publication today. In Rwanda, Rwanda's economy grew 9.7% in the first quarter of 2024. And you can see the GDP there at 9.7%. Rwanda's economy, that is the projection that it grew with. In the first quarter, the agriculture sector increased by 7%, contributing a total of 25% to the overall GDP. 73% private final consumption was 73% of gross domestic product. Current market prices, we have 4,486 billion Rwandan francs. That story continues inside the publication today of the New Times. High taxes and debt threaten East Africa growth. Finance ministers have presented expanded expenditure plans for 2024-2025, outlining physical measures that will cause more pain to households and struggling businesses. This story continues on page 4 and 5 of the publication today. And you can see some of the ministers there with their quintessential briefcases from Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and also Rwanda. The Economist, right? The Economist, rise of Chinese science, welcome or worrying? That is a probing question. The rise of Chinese science is threatening as well. And is it a welcome relief or also a niggling worry? That is the question that is being asked here on the front page of The Economist. Our presidential election focus model and Macron's gamble, the war for AI talent, is a New York Times bestseller list biased? That is a question being asked there on the front page of The Economist. If he wins, of course, this is the latest publication of Time magazine, and this is Biden. If he wins, right? The last publication was having the cover shot of Donald Trump with the same headline. If he wins, what happens? And the week, hawks in charge. What's stopping Netanyahu and Hamas from reaching a ceasefire deal? That is a probing question on the front page of the week with the Hamas and Israel war going on. All right, today we draw our quote from Philip Kotler, the consummate marketer. He says, today you have to run faster to stay in place. Today you have to run faster to stay in place. Indeed, we have to run faster right now. Let's just introduce our panel who are already here in studio. Patrick Obath was here up and early. All right, beating Gituro Wanaina to the punch, as usual. And of course, we had also Bunyasi Sakwa coming in third. And as always, we have Bill Okero who will be praying for us. So him, his team, to be coming at 6:30. And today also, quintessentially, Bill Okero doesn't have his cup. You forgot it or what? What is happening today? It is very conspicuous.
I told you that when you went to the mosque.
A protest. I want to join the Gen Z.
You're joining with Gen Z.
Still young at heart, right?
Yes.
Indeed. All right, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. Let's just begin with Patrick. He was missing last week, of course. Kepsa was meeting the Senate committee in Mombasa.
Yes.
What transpired?
This mic is going somewhere.
Yeah, could we just... Patrick's mic is spilling on the fallback. If you can kill it, I will appreciate it. There's an echo.
Bouncing around.
Right.
Yes, we had a...
Could we just switch it off, please? Just switch it off. It's okay now. Right.
We had
yes, thank you.
Yes, we had a meeting with the Senate last week as a Kenya Private Sector Alliance, and this is part of our regular engagement with the legislators.
Yes.
So we had the Senate roundtable last week, and we are having the National Assembly hopefully tomorrow. We should be meeting them tomorrow as well. And these are basically opportunities to have face-to-face dialogue with the various. With senators, with all the senators, because they're a smaller number, but with Parliament, it's normally the parliamentary committees that we meet. And it's all around discussing legislation that is going through through the various houses of Parliament. And it's so that they get a view in detail about what the concerns are. So there's always those that are already in progress, and there's those that we are going to, issues that we're going to bring up, and hopefully they'll be able to raise legislation on that. But I think the best...
So it had nothing to do with the finance bill?
We discussed some aspects of the finance bill.
Okay.
But Senate doesn't normally have any, much with the finance bill unless it touches on counties. Yeah, and I think there were some elements in the finance bill that people believe should go into Senate. But the key thing that we one of the things that Senate delivered the day before we met in Mombasa was this new legislation that requires the harmonization of charges from the counties. Right? And, the typical example that we use is the private sector in terms of how a multiplicity of charges kills enterprise in this country is if you have a truck which is labeled Coke or Cola and is carrying something from here to Moyale. And how many counties do you cross when you go there? You go through Kiambu, you start from Nairobi, Kiambu, you go through Muranga, and then you go through Embu, and then you go through Meru, and then you go through, Isiolo, and then all the way. You pass about 7-8 counties, and each of those counties expects you to pay for advertising if you've got anything written Coca-Cola or whatever it is, or Blue Band on the side of the vehicle. So by the time it reaches there, the consumer is paying a lot more than is necessary, purely because of the multiple charges. It also says on agricultural produce, if it goes from one county to another, for every county it crosses, they have to pay cess at each of those boundaries. And that just means that the cost of food and goods for Wananchi is very high. So what they've said that they will need to harmonize this, so they just want payments. And then you live here and you go whichever part of the country, so long as you've got that license, means that you paid centrally for that service. And then instead of paying 7 times, maybe you pay the equivalent of, 2 instead of 7, right? And that makes it much easier. So that was good when it came to discussion. And those are the kind of things that we discussed with both the Senate and the National Assembly. Yeah.
All right, and of course, when you talk about that cess, we still have the fuel levy, which is coming.
Yeah.
Which is
Maybe this matter.
Sorry?
I was the chair of finance.
Yeah.
Yes.
In 2013,
Yeah.
we discussed. A bill was actually drafted by Kenya Association of Manufacturers and so forth.
Yeah.
It never saw the light of the day because of the pressure by government, asking county governments to raise local revenue. That's where the problem is.
On source revenue.
So, and now as a businessman, if my truck goes from here to have depot in Kisii and Bungoma, we get licenses just to distribute in those counties around there from 5, 6, 7. Not just license for distribution, license for branding. If the vehicle is branded, if our name is written on the truck, we'll have to pay. I can't send a truck from here now to go and distribute something to Nyeri. The moment it arrives in Nyeri, I must have a license for distributing. Just delivery to you in Nyeri, I must have a license from the guys in Nyeri. It's madness. This is why the cost of things is so high in this
license
country.
from every county?
Yeah.
Any county you go
just
to.
Any county you go
distribution in your
to.
truck.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow,
It's
this
going
is
to
Mombasa.
It's a separate jurisdiction.
It's a different field.
The reason is because the Constitution is very clear, Section 207, Article 207. It says any measure that would make the cost of doing business is in, and make the economic. In fact, it's a very interesting section. I should refer to it because it's very clear, and I think that is the one that they are, any of those measures for generating local revenue in the counties should not affect the general economic, activity and the cost of doing business and so forth. That's the key thing. So I think that's why I have always been objecting to pressure by the national government, asking local governments, county governments to raise their own, because what happens is you're just making the cost of doing business so expensive.
But the expense is actually to the consumer.
Of course, it goes to the consumer.
But when that happens, it means your goods are not going to be bought, and then your volume goes down. And
Yes,
and
yes,
it
becomes very
it hits
expensive.
everybody. Yeah,
Doesn't it?
But I think the key thing is that as a private sector, we recognize yes, the counties need to get revenue, but don't make it every single whatever. Let's have an equitable system whereby you say you're going to raise it, say like the equivalent of crossing 2 counties, which is general
If your
whatever,
driver stops
and then
for
you
lunch
just do
on the way to Kisumu in Nakuru, and the vehicle is branded, they don't have a license for Nakuru, you're in serious trouble.
You won't live there.
That's what it means.
If you unpack it, what are you paying for?
Huh?
What are you paying for, really?
This is what they call it. Branding is a license. Distribution is a license. Advertising.
Every county has a license for those people operating inside that county. So if I was operating in Nairobi County and my business in Nairobi County, everything else, I get all those licenses
One
from Nairobi
county has 5,000 shillings, another will charge 20,000. And everyone does it
For the same license?
Well, of course. It's a free one.
So
I think
maybe it's the expanse of the county. So as much as you track where the longer the kilometer, the higher taxes you should pay.
We don't charge you. You go to Mandara. You're the only one who don't charge those things.
No, I think the good thing about this bill that came out, it recognized that there needs to be some kind of uniformity and control, and saying that the charges should not be levied in every county. There should be one charge that is levied that can be shared across the counties. So it doesn't matter, I mean, if I'm going through 20 counties or 5, the essence is that there should be just a small charge that they can be shared out, right? And there is rules, I mean, what do they call them, actuaries, yeah? They can actually work out as a formula that means that, you know, this is the normal spread of distribution and so forth and so on, how many vehicles cross these places daily, etc. They can use an actuarial calculation or some form of mathematics to actually say, fine, this is a fair charge that allows all countries to make money, which is, and I think that's the beauty of that particular bill.
What is the current
what is the option if we have the SGR? Is that maybe...
Or using the road from Mombasa?
Yeah.
The SGR is one long way live, so
so
the SGR,
you'll escape all these charges along the way.
That is silent, on the SGR.
Why is it silent?
Let me tell you, what this says is that the taxation and
Yeah.
other revenue raising...
What are we reading at?
209.
209.
295. The taxation and other revenue raising powers of a county shall not be exercised in a way that prejudices national economic policies, economic activities across country boundaries,
Right.
or the national mobility of goods,
services,
capital and labor.
Exactly.
And then there is a section in the PFM Act, I don't know if it was 164, whatever, which clearly requires that if a county wants to come up with new levies and rates or whatever in their local finance bills, it must get approval from Treasury. This is to harmonize. The Treasury has abandoned, they never do it. So
absolutely.
I think
that so our engagement, that is exactly what we want to achieve, and it's not around trying to stop, but it's trying to make it equitable so that businesses don't suffer and counties also agree on how they raise their revenue, right? So, and I think these kind of, these structured dialogues that we have once, twice a year actually have helped a lot in crafting, at least getting some understanding of how bills should be crafted on that. So tomorrow, we're meeting the National Assembly.
All right.
Again, we have a full day just to discuss some of the bills that are going through the National Assembly. We might also discuss the finance bill.
The finance committee?
No, we're meeting the whole
National Assembly.
we're meeting all the parliamentary committees, the committees of the National Assembly.
Okay.
We are meeting them.
All of them.
As KEPSA?
As KEPSA, yeah.
Okay.
That's what we do. We can't meet the whole of the National Assembly. I mean, there's too many people, and the dialogue will be impossible. But if we work with the committees and the committee heads, and a few members, that is better dialogue, because there's a committees really that interrogate the legislation that goes in, and if they understand really what our concerns are, and not only concerns but alternatives. I think that's the key thing that we always talk about as KEPSA. We don't just say we have a concern. We also offer an alternative as options that we should consider in that, which is what we did with the finance bill.
2023.
This 2024.
This 2024. Okay.
Yeah. We actually we didn't just go and say we don't like this, we don't like that, we don't like that. We offered alternatives. Yeah.
Okay. And what are some of the salient issues that you'll be raising tomorrow with them?
The discussion tomorrow will depend on how things are going through through Parliament today. Yeah.
No, but of course you have
we've already raised them.
You don't just go shooting in the dark.
We've already got issues. We've already raised the issues around the finance bill. I mean, things like this circulation tax that they wanted to do. Yeah. Yes, the government needs money, right? But don't do it in a way that will now make people sort of not take insurance or whatever it is, because the ramifications of that are very big. Because if people don't take insurance, it's going to be, the road carnage is going to go up. So what you said, instead of doing that, put a shilling levy on fuel or 50 cents on fuel. You raise exactly the same amount of money, right? And that will then be spread over time and it will percolate into the economy. Same
That's
outcome,
not good
different
advice.
way. Yeah?
That's not good advice.
We're just saying take it differently.
No.
Yeah?
Why don't
So-
you, when you meet as KEPSA, because
Yeah.
there has been criticisms of KEPSA also for a long time, that you play pussyfoot with the government. You don't tell the government, here Kenyans are paying the taxes, businesses are paying taxes, but you are not spending, the money is not being spent. There's wastage. You read today the editorial in Nation, you talk of the
That
billions.
discussion-
I think, wait,
That
don't run away
discussion
from
we
that.
have. That discussion we have.
Now let him execute so that let him finish. Then you can have a rejoinder.
I'll have a right of response.
Continue, Bilo.
Yeah.
I'm listening.
Let's listen.
So I think it's important also to point out to the government,
Yeah.
the single biggest challenge in this country is not about inadequate revenue. We raise, and this is my favorite topic, we raise more revenue than all the East African countries combined.
Don't we?
And one of the things that we have seen is that government officials have repeated for the last 15, 20 years that 1/3 of our budgeted expenditure is actually lost through corruption, wastage, and inefficiency. This has been repeated by the former President Uhuru Kenyatta. It was said in 2016 by the then chairman of Kenya of Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. The former PS Finance, Kinyo, repeated it twice in 2010, 2003. I mean, it said Anyang' Nyong'o when he was the Minister for Economic Planning. This is something which government officials have all acknowledged, that 1/3 is lost. I think this is what we need to tell the government, that, look, why do you harass Mama Mboga and these little boys on their phones?
And
Yes, and businesses. Save that money. Look for how you can tighten that. I think this is when your discussions are, let us not focus only on revenue, please. When you meet as KEPSA, have the courage to discuss the issue of expenditures. We've
actually done that, Lilo, because who came up with the anti-corruption law? It was actually KEPSA that drafted it and gave it to government, and they went and did it.
It was the UN charter that all countries were required to have.
We actually paid for it,
So they had
and
to
we
align.
did whatever it is to basically, because corruption, we recognize that. And it's something that we've had discussions with government, and we always have it. It's not new. What I was just giving is the newest discussion. But this is an item that we discuss every time in terms of the cost of corruption. We put it at about 10% of GDP, right? It's lost in corruption overall. And if they can just get that back, they don't need to raise taxes.
Correct.
Yeah? That's one. You put it at 30% of the budget, we put it at 10% of GDP. I mean, the figures are staggering, whichever way you put it, right, in terms of corruption. And it is a touchy subject. When you do that, sometimes quite a few of the people disappear. They don't want to come to that meeting, but we do it. I think you remember we had the anti-corruption conference, right? With the last government, we actually sat down and we actually gave memorandum to the government. And if you remember, they also went to Naivasha, and that's when you had the judiciary, you had the prosecutory people, and all of them sat together and said there's a reason why these cases are not going through. Each of us has got to pull up. They had one meeting, and then some changes happened, but then they stopped meeting after that.
But
those are some of the things that we now follow up.
Patrick, you're right, but I don't know where these meetings will take us. And I think it's something it's like what these physicists said is like you do different, same thing, expected different result. It won't work.
Yeah.
It's interesting, when the president was in the US, one of the money he got was money to fight corruption. And he unpacked that. Doesn't make sense. How do you get a loan or whatever to fight corruption? Money to fight another money. And I think at the bottom line, we can go to conferences, we can do 2012, he brought the same thing. Let's do it, let's implement it. Dracula, implementation is an art.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
Execution.
But,
And that execution,
Yeah.
and we have said here again and again, requires the highest person in that country. It requires me as the head of the household
Political
to make
will
things
up
to
there.
work.
It's political
We
will.
go to conferences,
And
whatever.
we have those are some of the issues we bring up in the meeting.
Absolutely, yeah.
But also within the private sector itself, we have got, I mean, this is our own contribution, yeah? Where the biggest problem is actually the largest number of people who rely on government services, right? And that is why the government is probably the biggest solution if they actually undertake what they've said they're going to do, right? All these signs that you see up in, this is a corruption-free zone.
Right.
That sign that was put up there was probably put up at 4 times the price.
But
that should have been
Diba,
put up at.
recall that
You're going to give me
that
time
times
to get in at some stage.
Yeah, of course. At
that
this
times of Rwanda.
Yes.
You saw it there.
The New Times.
Let's look at the numbers.
Okay, let's look at the
And
numbers.
relate those numbers to issue of governance.
All right.
It tells you.
But they will argue that, of course, this is, you have to look at it per capita.
Yeah, even if you push per capita.
If we just pick it up, my director there, the Rwanda's economy...
It was interesting relating those two.
By 9.7% in the first quarter.
Very impressive.
Right. Rwanda's economy grew
He was doing the
by
papers
9.7. Yeah, there we are.
And look at agriculture.
Agriculture, yes, by 7%, increased by 7%, contributing to a total of 25% to the GDP, overall GDP.
So which you are saying now, you can see the correlation between good leadership and growth.
Good growth.
That's what
Yes,
we're talking about.
but take it a little further.
All right.
That growth of 9 points.
Could we give also the incoming governor of Busia so he can tell us even how on the levies on the cess? Yeah.
He has been coming forever.
Thanks very much.
No respect to our friend.
I have thanked my colleagues. It's very humorous this morning on very serious subjects, which is a good thing. We tackle it with a light touch, which is a nice thing. Let me start with the 2 or 3 comments to make very quickly. Let us start with this one on corruption. I think there's little disagreement, I would assume, even from the administrations in power, to agree that corruption is a big component of our economy. That somehow a lot of the income that's generated goes, if you look at it from an expenditure perspective of the individual payers, goes to corrupt, pads corruption. The laws have been passed, and sometimes pretty good laws. Implementation is a big challenge. So the only challenge I think we all face, those who identified and those who like it sorted out, is just how to make that system more effective. And even this morning around the table, we're deriding the value that might come out of meetings. But that's how big institutions communicate, through the law. And you have to keep talking to each other. When last time when our our manufacturers, our manufacturers, executive officer, I think he is, Anthony, was sitting here. He was decrying the whole issue of lack of communication, sitting down, ability to sit down and talk to government. And I was very impressed when I heard Patrick talking about having sat down with the Senate down in Mombasa. They will sit in Nairobi to discuss what it is that they feel ought to be done differently. And all these are very important things. So the issue around corruption is, when we see it, do we recognize it? It's not just the policeman on the road. When you see corruption, do you actually recognize it? I think that awareness thinking, needs to be, we need to sharpen it even further. It is a scourge. We have to deal with it, and that's a real problem. On the issues that...
but still on corruption, we have Professor wondering here, then how can you get some money to fight fight corruption?
Well,
and we've had also EACC declare the fact that they're not well funded to fight corruption.
No, you need funding. There are fundable items. Technology. You may fund, you fund technology to enhance the capacity to do the analytics around it, to identify it, to do the quick processing. You need people to sit around the table and talk to each other. It costs money. That's the reality of, I think. Patrick here, instead of having a meeting in Nairobi with the Senate, went all the way down to Mombasa. They have to fly down in Mombasa and fly out everybody else. And that's how people do business, including government, including churches and so on. You go to a point where people can relax and think clearly and not be hassled by day-to-day things.
That's the only Patrick who have got a members of Parliament.
In Mombasa is where you can think clearly.
No, you're away from home. I have noticed it, say, for example, I've had a retreat, I think once, just the other week, that we had in town. And, people show up a bit late because they have to drop their children, because something has come up during the coffee break as a call or something. But when you're out there, you sort of sorted that out of your mind, and it's taking care of it. It does help. Yeah, it can have an element of luxury, but who says luxury for a human being shouldn't be enjoyed from time to time?
Right.
Yeah, but within bounds and so on.
Okay.
But I think the key thing you weren't here, Patrick, last time, and nor was Professor, I think, and we were talking about the lack of conversations between entities that ought to be conversing with the taxman. And I think we were focusing on the Association of Manufacturers. Unfortunately, Bilo was there, and Bilo plays many expert roles on this. He's a businessman, he's an economist, he's been in Bunge. He understands these processes. And
above all, he's a practicing Muslim.
And above all, yes. No, and that's a great thing, because it does. You bring that into these decisions, and you can more clearly see issues around some of our concerns, like the corruption thing that we've been talking about. But the basic point, it even bothered me that day just how callous it would be that these tax setters don't even take the trouble to sit and talk to the entities that bake the cake. But I noticed just the other day this week that my CS had gone to attend a meeting of the Association of Manufacturers in State House, finally with the president, but I think it was also with the economic advisors and finance and so on. These meetings take place. People don't own up. You come out and you have not got what you wanted out of it. So you might as well say, no, we haven't had any consultation. But it's not possible. One of the most active associations, the Association of Manufacturers, they always have been. And they have been very clear, very specific, very detailed. I remember there have been years past when we have had regular meetings that are held with the Association of Manufacturers, for example. They may not get all they want, but to sort of say, with a straight face that there has been no consultation, I think is probably a little strong, and perhaps that's pushing on truth a little bit. Now, government needs to be listening. That's the point. Even picking out what has not been fully spoken. That is true, because the interest of government at the end of the day, that the economy should perform. If the economy performs well, their tax collection will be better, the happiness index of the nation will be a lot better, and many, many things will just sort of happen by themselves, so to say. But government, even in its intention, in trying to be good, as it were, sometimes may turn a blind eye if they are not reminded. That's why demonstrations of the types we see are very good reminders that, hey, we are pushing the envelope too far, let us step back, and so on. And I was very happy myself when a day before the budget reading, they dropped a couple of the clauses and so on. I think it is goodwill to say,
thank you,
we're prepared to listen.
And talking of demonstration, for the second day running, the campaign to have the members of Parliament reject the controversial Finance Bill 2024 continued in Mombasa. Anti-riot police had to lob tear gas canisters to disperse hundreds of youth, majority under the age of 30, known as Gen Z, who had turned out for the protest. It was a cat and mouse game as the young and energetic protesters engaged the police in running battles. Tobias Chanji starts us off.
The long day drizzling did not dampen the spirits of hundreds of youth who turned up for protests against the finance bill on the streets of Mombasa. They sang and chanted songs as they made their statement clear.
Democracy is power of the people, for the people, by the people. The bill is not helping anyone. We don't have proper medical policies, and you still want to tax us to the bone. It cannot happen like that. Create proper medical policies, make cancer treatment tax-free. What do you mean I'm paying for tax? Cancer treatment is expensive as it is. So we have said good medical policies and stop taxing us to our bone. Be caring to your people.
The young protesters were also joined by the older generation with the same calls of rejecting the finance bill, which they termed as punitive and draconian.
Niko na kampuni ya eye catchers, niko na vijana kama 15 nimeandika. Sasa sijui nitapelekea hawa answer gani. Manake hawawezi kuenda kwa shule, wanashindwa na mambo mengi. Nataka ndio nisimamie ndio wapate jibu vizuri.
As the number of protesters started to swell, so was the number of anti-riot police officers who were armed to the teeth to deal with them. Central Police Station OCS ordered them to leave claiming the protests were illegal.
Tayari polisi wameweza kuja na shields, but we want to tell Kenyans kwamba sisi tuliwapatia notice, we gave them a notice and we are peaceful protesters. We are young men, now we do not deserve this and we will continue picketing.
I have joined the Gen Z protesters or the protesters against the finance bill.
Hakuna maandamano. I'm saying hakuna nini? So peacefully, watu waende kwa biashara. Watu waende wapi? I am the OCS na sina barua. Iko na signature yangu. Iko na signature yangu. Do you know my signature? Si yangu yo.
It was a cat and mouse game as the young protesters regrouped at different points in order to proceed with their march. At one time, they took the war to the Central Police Station gate, where they knelt and continued with their chants.
Though the police have thwarted the protesters have vowed to continue the protest until the government backs down on the finance bill. Tobias Chanji, KTN News, Mombasa County.
Occupy Parliament protest held on Tuesday and those that continued in Mombasa seemingly heralded a new era in the history of the anti-protest. The strategies used to rally support and manage protesters differed sharply from what we're accustomed to. Yesterday's mass action was led by young, tech and informed and assertive Kenyans, contrasting with the past protest associated with opposition leader Raila Odinga. Various leaders have come out to support the Gen Z demonstrations, as Grace Nyanga will report.
They are popularly known for taking over the social media scene, showcasing the latest dancing trends, using the space for influencer marketing. But little did we know there is something more in them. Tuesday, Kenyans were shocked following the new crop of fearless youth who stormed the capital, Nairobi, with placards chanting for their rights, demystifying the stereotype that protests only belong to a certain age. This time, the opposition, led by Raila Odinga, was not needed in the typical anti-government protest on the high cost of living.
Now let us. We miss you, but Agwambo, please don't even come outside. Don't come outside. Tunatoka on your behalf, okay?
The same youth that the president enticed during the campaign period seems to redefine politics in the country. For this, Odinga, among other politicians, were left impressed for the fearless initiative they took. Through his X platform, Odinga said, and I quote, "I'm a very proud father today. Hongera sana to the young lady and all those who bravely stood up for their rights." End of quote. Narok Senator Ledamo Olekina said, and I quote, "Way to go, Generation Z. We will support you. The revolution will not be televised. It will bite hard. Mad respect for Gen Z." End of quote. The Azimio allies maintain that the pressure needs to be imposed on MPs to reject the bill that is currently on the floor of the House.
They've made a few changes. I mean, it's like a poison drink. They've poured just part of it.
Mobilization and coordination for the protest were done on social media, defying the doubts of observers such as President William Ruto's economic advisor, David Ndii, who downplayed the potency of digital activism. The revolution began on social media, with Kenyans expressing their views and discontentment with the bill. Although we could hardly know of the arrested protesters in the past, with forced determination and modern technology, this time they took with their phones documenting every moment that unfolded, even in police cells and in police trucks. The young people demanded to be heard. By the end of the day, over 300 protesters were arrested, with calls for their release increasing. This, as warnings of a resolution seem to have been prophesied months before.
People will recover their agency and they'll tell this regime enough is enough. And I would encourage Kenyans to use their agency.
And the movement becoming a reckoning moment for the Kenya Kwanza government.
If we don't deliver, those hustlers will send us out of power.
The protests are meant to influence and pressurize MPs to vote against the bill and its proposed taxes, which have been perceived as punitive. Grace Nganga, KT News, Nairobi.
Azimio leaders have heaped praise on Generation Z for bracing themselves against state artillery. In opposition of the 2024 financial bill, led by Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, the leaders praised Gen Z for taking to the streets to protest against the bill, which was tabled on the floor of the House on Tuesday afternoon. And as Innocent Ogaro reports, Azimio says the bill is of no good to Kenyans, warning of a possible economic meltdown in the country if it comes into effect.
After recent lengthy pin drop silence that raised eyebrows in the country, Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka has finally weighed in on the contentious 2024 finance bill, which has for some time now sparked sharp reactions. Alongside other Azimio leaders, Kalonzo has come out to oppose the finance bill, taking the opportunity to laud Generation Z for their role in Tuesday's anti-finance bill protest that rocked the streets of Nairobi. Kalonzo was in high praise of the courage exuded by the youth, saying it signifies fresh breath in the liberation of the country.
Sasa tunasema wamepatana na wenyewe Gen Z. Tuwapigie Gen Z makofi. Tuwapigie Gen Z makofi tena. Hawabebi mawe. Gen Z hawabebi mawe. Hawetukani yeye mtu. Wanaweka tu vitu namna hiyo, utamshika umpeleka wapi? Kwa hivyo Wakenya wamerefuka na wanasema potelea mbali utawala wa dhuluma, wa mababu, wa kubomolea maitu nyumba kama huyu.
His sentiments were echoed by DAP-K leader Eugene Wamalwa and Jubilee Party Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni. According to the duo, the coalition will continue playing a lead role in the fight for Kenyan interests.
Hivi leo na jana, vijana wetu kizazi cha Gen Z wamejitokeza kupambana na mtu anaitwa Zakayo. Leo tunawaambia vijana msilale, bado nini? Vijana msilale, bado nini? Na siku ile kuna njia moja tu Zakayo, ushuru utashuka Kenya, siku ile Zakayo atashuka.
Azimio leaders were speaking in Mathare, Nairobi, where they had visited families affected by the ongoing demolitions of riparian land.
Ikuwa na manyumba yao. Kama huyu yake ilimomoleo pande ile. Ule mwingine pande hii. Kwa hivyo malimomoa mafuroti 6 yangu ya watoto yangu.
Tulijaribu kama wazazi, hawakutusikia. Sasa watoto wamekuja na wakawapiga na tear gas na wengine wakaweka ndani. Kutoka hapa tutaenda kule Milimani Law Courts kwa sababu wengine wamepelekwa kotini saa hii. Kwa hivyo tutaenda kule kujaribu kuwatetea na kuhakikisha kwamba wametolewa katika cells, wasije wakalala kule.
Their visit was a relief for the victims who were left homeless, especially Grace Wanjiku, who was promised a new house.
The leaders have applauded young generation for coming out in numbers yesterday at Nairobi CBD in fighting the tsunami of taxes emanating from the Finance Bill 2023-2024. Innocent Ogaro, KTN News, Nairobi.
And meanwhile, harsh exchange of words between the government-allied lawmakers and opposition MPs characterized the day as debate on the controversial Finance Bill 2024 at the National Assembly began. As allied MPs accused President William Ruto's administration of hoodwinking Kenyans, terming their concessions as public relations gimmicks. They claimed that the government plans to sneak punitive and oppressive clauses such as road fuel levy through the back door. And as KTN's senior political affairs reporter Daniel Karuki now reports, the MPs are expected to approve or drop the bill by Tuesday next week.
This afternoon session.
If the government hoped to have a smooth sailing during the debate of the controversial Finance Bill 2024 by having concessions to some clauses in the bill, then Wednesday proved difficult as the opposition engaged the ruling side in a heated debate.
Order, honorable members.
The opposition accused Kimani Kuria-led Finance Committee of hoodwinking Kenyans by dropping some tax proposals but sneaking in other clauses that sought to bridge the gap. Nominated MP John Mbadi engaged in Kuria in a fiery arguments over a clause proposing increase of road fuel levy.
To help raise sufficient funds
to maintain and repair roads across the country, the committee recommends an increase of the levy pursuant to Section 3 of the Road Maintenance Levy Fund Act from 18 shillings to 25 shillings per litre on all petroleum products.
Introduction of increase of fuel cannot be done on a finance bill. It is just a matter of simple logic that such an experienced legislator should know, Honorable Speaker.
Mbadi accused Kuria of not being familiar with his own report on the proposals.
Mr. Speaker, I'm shocked that the chair of Finance and Planning Committee does not even understand this report. Let us go to page 397 or 377. New clause means what? You are going to put a new clause.
Order. When the committee will be proposing amendments during the committee of the whole House, we have already submitted our report that this cannot be done on this finance bill, and that is a fact.
It has transpired by the words of the chair of the committee, who has signed the document, that the document did not bear this issue on RMLF.
But sharp division took center stage during the debate as those in opposition vowed to oppose the bill in its entirety.
This is a case of taking with one hand, giving with one hand, and taking back with another hand. It's not helping the situation.
Nitawaambia ni ukweli, Wakenya wanahangaika. Mmekuja hapa, mmelipwa pesa, mmepewa pesa nyingi kuja kuwa Wakenya katika bunge hili.
Anytime taxes go up, it is not the big fish that actually pay these taxes. Because all they do, when you increase cost of fuel, all they do is pass it on to the consumer. And the consumer is Mama Mboga. The consumer is the last man in the chain.
If this bill was done the way it was done, without the input of serious government technocrats, Mr. Speaker, then it has proved to me that this government lacks technocrat.
So do not be cheated like the African culture where you are told have decorum, dress nicely, be kind, be nice. I'm telling you, you will go nowhere.
The majority side, however, pushed for the passage of the finance bill, saying the punitive measures had been dropped.
It shall not be possible to deliver services, to build roads, to build schools without generating revenue for the country, Honorable Speaker. We cannot be a country that lives on debt, Honorable Speaker.
And access to health is also important because it translates to the development of our country in general.
You cannot eat your cake and still have it. You cannot say on the other hand, that you are supporting what the executive is doing in terms of funding you, what touches you, but you cannot show them where they'll get this money from, Honorable Speaker.
The two sides each pulling their side on the contentious bill. The much anticipated voting scheduled once the debate is finalized Thursday. Daniel Kariuki, KTN News at the Parliament Buildings, Nairobi.
The Central Organization of Trade Unions Secretary General Francis Atwoli is supporting the Finance Bill 2024, saying it is good for the workers as well as the country. The Court boss said the country cannot grow without taxes and that the money that will be raised will be used to transform key sectors of the economy. He also urged the government to adopt a framework for media house protection and data dissemination.
Later, after our economists having gone through on that one, and we expected the committee, we wrote to the chairman of the committee which deals with the budget and finance in Parliament to look at it. This is not a new thing. The president said he will not borrow. He said this country must be built by Kenyans. That he said openly. And even when he was campaigning, he said this country, we will build it with you. Tutajenga hii serikali na nyinyi, watu wa mkokoteni, watu wa bodaboda. He did not hide. He said you will be part of this system, which happens elsewhere in the developed world. Outside there, a half of your salary goes to taxation. That is the truth of the matter. And I said what the press can help us with, and pressure groups like KOTU, churches, and other people, what you people, and even NGOs, whether the money goes to the intended use. We want to see the eradication of poor roads, also all the dilapidated infrastructure being addressed by money coming from taxation. People will be quiet. We want to see modernization of Embakasi Airport, because that is our international airport.
All right, as we take a short break right now. Okay, I'll climb down. Seems Zakayo now has opted to climb down, but has he, as far as concessions are concerned, and the debate continues apace? That is Zakayo, and of course we have Gen Z, as you can see, lifting their devices and taking a picture there, a photo of Zakayo climbing down after Zakayo was pushed to the corner by Gen Z, and many people have been agitating against the Finance Bill 2024. Right, government and corruption. I want 30% of your income. That's what the government is. You can see frisking Wanjiko there, who is having, some hand-me-down clothes there, and the corruption. I want 60% of your income. That is corruption. The clammy fingers of corruption, as you can see it so far. Very interesting as well, as you can see the latest development. If I may scroll back to the Daily Nation, off the hook is Obado. We shall be looking at this as well. EACC sought out of court settlement after a fire razed county stores and key evidence were razed down. So this is the way to do it, right? So you just lit fire everywhere, all the documents are burned, then we settle it out of courts. We take a short break. That is Kenya. They say it says Kenya Jero, right? As Gitoro would say, it's the new Kenya. We take a short break. You're watching Sokoni today.